and welcome to the On the Whistle podcast. My South African brothers and sisters, you will not be happy because today we are talking about your neighbors and rivals, Namibia. Yes, the Brave Warriors are indeed going to need to be brave at this AFCON, being paired up with their Southern African rivals. And Joviita Kandjumbwa joins the podcast to tell us just what a miracle run this was for the Namibians to qualify for the AFCON, and why there is quite a lot of optimism going into this tournament, particularly in that game against Bafana Bafana. Enjoy. Joviita, we were just saying before the podcast started, I think it's a first to have a Namibian on. We obviously cover a lot of PSL football. We have a former PSL winner in Courtney Fries, who's part of the podcast. So we get plenty of South Africans, but we don't get enough of their neighbors. So we're really happy to have a Namibian on instead of a South African.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be the first Namibian. So that's clearly me paving the way for the rest of the Namibians to be on the podcast. And I'm vouching already for a few in the PSL as well, so that you can be able to chat to them as well. But it's lovely to be on the platform.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great to have you. And I must say, you're a double-edged kind of enemy of the podcast, because we have two South Africans and we also have a Cameroonian. And we'll obviously get into why Cameroonians aren't a big fan of Namibians, because you guys showed them up in the qualifiers. But we'll get onto that as we preview the AFCON. But we're talking about Joviita, that this is a brilliant achievement for the Brave Warriors to get to their fourth ever AFCON in their history, their first since 2019. It's a brilliant achievement, but it's especially brilliant because they've had to do it without actually playing any of their qualifiers or any of their matches in Namibia. What is going on?
Let me tell you, against odds, we could have said, you know what, the boys tried, they didn't qualify. We might as well let it slide because of the circumstances and the kind of environment we're in right now. We're just coming off a normalization committee, which just left office, and they handed over the power to the new executive council of the Namibia Football Association. And, amidst all of that, we don't have, FIFA, CAF approved facilities in the country. So that became a challenge to, play at home. And we have not seen the Brave Warriors playing at home in the last 3 years. So you can imagine the kids are missing out on seeing a Peter Shalulile, on seeing a Dion Hoto, on seeing a Ryan Nyambe ever, live. These are the only opportunities that, young players get to see their sort of like their role models they get to watch on TV who play in the bigger leagues. And so we missed out on that opportunity, and the situation at home, not conducive. But I mean, we are brave warriors. That's what we are. We're really brave, and the warrior in the boys came out. And I think the advantage that we had is the fact that Kenya was out of the group. So we sort of had an upper hand on that one. We just sort of had to whiz through Cameroon. And the biggest debate of our qualifier was Cameroon. Everybody said, can Namibia do it? Are we able to do it? And shockingly, I would say even I was shocked at the performance of the boys, especially in Cameroon when they played away from home and they got that victory. And they went up against big stars. If you're speaking of the coach, even just the history of the whole side, the FA president, the whole Cameroonian side has just such rich history that we just said, you know what, we want to go to the continental showcase, and by fire by force we're going, and we are up for our fourth appearance.
Absolutely, and I don't want to dig out my our good friend and fellow co-host Francis, who's Cameroonian too much. But I remember putting in the group chat after the draw that you guys got away from home in Cameroon, said, "Oh, things are looking a little nervous," and he said, "It's okay. We'll get the job done in South Africa." And then he texted halfway through the game, because Namibia went on to win, and of course Cameroon then had to get that last kind of beat Burundi in that final match, and it wasn't a comfortable kind of victory for Cameroon. And I again, you talking about Kenya reminds me, you put yourself again in a difficult position, because I also grew up in Kenya, and so I was very unhappy that Namibia are here at qualifying for the AFCON, when in my opinion it should be Kenya, who through no fault of Namibia's, it's Kenya very much knocked themselves out, which is very standard for us. But I want to speak specifically about those two results against Cameroon, because Cameroon, obviously they haven't been the best Cameroon side in recent years, but they have so much history, so much pedigree. Obviously they get to the semifinals of their own AFCON, and then they go to the World Cup, and they do fairly well. Obviously they get that historic result against Brazil. and for you guys to not only, draw with them away, but then get the win back, in inverted commas, home in South Africa, what has that done for the kind of team's confidence, for the nation's confidence?
After the win, let me just start with the celebration, especially when we were able to beat them at away from home. Is the fact that the fans said, you know what, Cameroon, no, please give us Brazil, give us Argentina. It was a whole excitement, I mean, in the streets. And we would have actually personally loved to witness it at home. I think as fans, as Namibians, we were robbed of that opportunity to be able to see the boys qualifying, not qualifying, but winning at home. That would have honestly been such a memorable thing, that we were able to beat the Abubakars at home. That would have been such a great result, for us to witness as well. But we're nonetheless still excited. We're so happy. But if you look at, I mean, you rightfully said the history of Cameroon. I was doing the 2022 Qatar World Cup, and I watched that last game against Brazil, the victory. I mean, even though they were knocked out, the victory meant so much for all of us Africans, because I mean, if an African nation goes to the World Cup, we all support that African nation and we're rooting for them. And it was quite unfortunate. And we thought, man, this AFCON, this Cameroonian side is too strong, it's too good. But the boys had heart. That's all I can say. They had heart. And they also, for most of the players, and also the reason why they really went at the game the way they went at it is because most of these players is possibly going to be their last AFCON. If we're looking at the Lloyd Kadapwa, was at 2019 and is going to be at the 2024, now 23 AFCON. But if we're looking at the sort of the possibilities for them going to another AFCON, if you're looking at the way that we take long to qualify, and I think with the situation at hand now, we're not quite sure what's going to happen after Ivory Coast 2024, if we're looking at the situation on the ground. So for most of them also, this one is an opportunity for them to make history. So for the first time, a Namibian player will go back to back AFCON. So that is sort of another, a title that they want to carry with them. So they really had a lot of other motivating aspect, that this is so it's a different wave of players. Now, if you also look at this Brave Warriors side, is the same Brave Warriors side that won the 2015 COSAFA Cup, a first for Namibia. This is a Brave Warriors side that is coming out from youth academies, and they went through the structures. So they kind of know, not all of them, but some of them. So they are really trendsetters, and they really have a different mindset. And you can see what Peter Shalulile is doing for his club. It's something that if a Peter can't do it for his country, then we are like, what is happening? What is wrong? So we have such a great group of players, and this is possibly for most of them their last AFCON. And sadly, if it's not their last AFCON, it's their last time playing for the Brave Warriors, because I know you know the situation in Namibia, as it's not conducive for the national team players. They are forced to stay in different settings, circumstances, where they train, what they eat. It's a whole lot of things, and a lot of them are very unhappy at the moment. I don't know if we might see a boycott. I can expect anything at this moment. I know we are happy to be going to AFCON, but behind the scenes it's not looking great.
Regardless of the happiness of qualifying for AFCON, that's no excuse for kind of not having kind of good systems in place and infrastructure for the players. And I mean, you're saying that even at the AFCON, we're still not even sure how things are going to pan out because of the kind of finances around the team.
Yeah, I mean, if we're speaking now, we have like less than a month to go. I mean, AFCON kicks off on the 13th of January. We play our first game on the 16th of January, but at home we still don't know what are the players going to be receiving, what are the bonuses, what is everything, appearance fees, everything, sort of the whole package for the players. We don't have any of that information at the moment. There's sort of a disconnect between the government and the FA. The FA is saying they submitted a budget. The government is saying they have not received anything. We can't be having this kind of debate. We are going into Christmas and New Year, so it's going to be a restful place, and everybody's not going to be in office office. So we should have sorted all these things out before we got to this stage, because I mean the 19th, most people are going to be out of office by Friday. So it's sort of a big issue. And if you know players, they are the key to any success of any team. We can't speak of a nation and we say, oh, Brave Warriors, and we're not speaking of the players. We don't care about who's the FA president. We don't care about who's sitting at the ministry. We only see a Peter. We only see a Dion. And if a Dion is bad and a Peter is bad on the day, we don't care whether they received money, they didn't receive money. Our the only thing that we sort of worried about at the particular moment is if they delivered. We don't necessarily worry about that. So possibly only us in the media or people who really very much patriotic and fanning and huge fans sort of really care about the financial element. But we need, and everywhere in the world, players are the key. They have to be taken care of. You will never see a player being paid just sort of just a call-up fee, or just without going to the World Cup without bonuses. I'm sure the likes of Tunisia, the likes of Morocco, South Africa have already declared their bonuses, have already declared what are their appearance fees, where they are going to be training, who they are going to be playing. I was looking at Tunisia, they're going to be playing Mauritania and another country just before they head off to that is AFCON. We don't even know where we're going to be playing or we are going to be preparing for AFCON. We just know, we have an idea that maybe the training camp will take place somewhere in West Africa because the AFCON is in West Africa. We don't even have a friendly lined up. So there's a lot of things that need to be taken into consideration that have not yet been done for such a big tournament of this magnitude.
Yeah, that is such a shame to hear. But we'll park away kind of some of the kind of negativity and the frustration around the team and kind of talk about the positives. And the positives is kind of, when we look at this squad, obviously the name that jumps out is Peter Shalulile. I think it was even just last weekend, rose to second in the PSL goal scoring charts. He's only behind Siabonga Nomvete, and he's probably going to overtake him as well in the next kind of year or two. He's kind of going to go down as one of the PSL's, greatest ever strikers. Where does he sit? Obviously he scored those goals against Cameroon and he's been performing for the Brave Warriors. Where does he sit in terms of Namibian history as one of your best players?
Well, I think Peter is our I wouldn't. I would be doing an injustice if I say he's possibly the greatest in our history. But there are so many who have come in different eras. So I would say of this generation, he's the absolute best. He's our best export to date. He has done so much for the club and country. He's the current top goal scorer for the Brave Warriors as well. And I mean, if you look at Peter, his statistics are just beyond amazing. And he was currently or recently just nominated for the Interclub Player of the Year at the CAF Awards. That is massive. Even though he didn't win it, I mean, he just to stand and be part of the last three players on the continent to be recognized, that is a huge milestone for him. But I'm not surprised to see him be where he is. He is a dedicated player. He's passionate, and above all, he's committed. And he knows his reason why. He has his why for playing football. He's leaving a legacy that I don't even think he saw himself leaving at the beginning of his career. Because funny enough, Peter was a left back. He wasn't even a
Wasn't he? He wasn't
striker.
even a
So
striker when he moved to South Africa, right?
but he wanted to play for the Brave Warriors, and there was already too many left backs, and he was going to go up against some of the base players. And Ricardo Manetti at the time needed a striker, and he said, "Why not? Why can't I be that?" And this is the kind of passion and drive we want to see in modern day players who still have passion, players who still have dedication and commitment to the game, and to see all he has achieved. And he's the beacon of Namibia. I mean, he's celebrated in Namibia. We are always celebrating him for everything that he's achieved. And I can tell you right now, there's a lot of pressure mounting for him. He's the captain of the team, and Namibia is really rooting for him. I remember in the just recently the World Cup qualifiers, he could not go, unfortunately, due to an injury that he's just coming from, and he had there was also concern for him to play the final of the
African
Africa
Football
Club.
League. Yeah,
Yes, yes,
because
that's
he'd
one.
missed all the
So
kind of quarterfinals and
yes.
semifinals.
So for Namibians to see him playing for Sundowns and missing playing for Namibia, a lot of people felt so betrayed. They thought, why is Peter not showing up for Namibia like he's showing up for Sundowns? But it's also like a health issue. As much as we want him to travel, without rest across Africa to turn up, it was sort of like a disconnect as well for that to be able to happen. And so we there was a bit of conflicting situation there. But if you're looking at it, there is going to be a lot of pressure for him, but he's a player who can take pressure on any day, and Namibia is really going to be relying on his leadership. We need a sort of a strong player. He's good for the locker room because all the young players are going to be looking at him and be like, "Oh, this is the guy who scores massive goals." They also want to turn up on the day, so that is really on the bright side. We have so many amazing players who play outside, who also play at home. We have so many great leaders on the team. I think that's what I love about this crop of Brave Warriors players. There are so many leaders. I know I've said so many negative things already about the Brave Warriors, but the good part of it is this crop of players. It's such a wonder to watch them, and even their leadership style. And Peter is at the forefront of just being a great leader, and I can't wait to see what he's going to do for the Brave Warriors at AFCON. But regardless of his performance, he's still going to be going down in history as one of the greatest players to ever come out of Namibia, and will forever be in the history books of the PSL, of Sundowns. He will be a legend literally everywhere.
Yeah, he absolutely will, and I kind of liken Shalulile to kind of like a Harry Kane, where he's one of those guys where he's just so focused on getting better, on improving. I mean, we had Lawrence Kohler, the journalist, come on to when we were talking about I think it was ahead of the CAF Champions League last season, and he was talking about how Shalulile kind of he would annoy the kind of other Sundowns players because he would finish training and then he would go get a personal coach and just work on his finishing and just work on and kind of whilst all the others go back and rest and chill out, he's there training even harder and harder. And he's just such a committed player, and it's great to see that, or great to hear that he's getting the plaudits that he deserves, both from CAF but also at home in Namibia, because I think he's been probably the best striker in club football in Africa, over the last kind of 4 or 5 years. He's been terrific. But kind of looking at the rest of the team, obviously it is you've got a very strong core of PSL based players, and then a kind of sprinkling of some others. Quite a few. Either playing at home or in Botswana, and then you've got a couple like Ryan Nyambe who are playing abroad. How much of a difference? You're talking about how so much of this team has been playing together for so long, but how much of a difference does it make to the team that actually so much of the team is actually playing in the same leagues or in the same kind of areas? Because oftentimes we have this challenge as African teams where if you have players, they're all playing abroad, they're all scattered all over the world. Whereas for Namibia, with the exception of just a couple, most of them are actually kind of based in either Namibia or South Africa, maybe Botswana. Is that kind of part of the reason why this team is so kind of together and is such a strong unit?
I think one of the things that is disadvantaging our players from, going as far as Europe is population and exposure. But most of them, I can tell you, are quality material to play in, the English Premier League, the Spanish La Liga. I think they could, if they had that exposure, they had that great marketing and great publicity like the West has, we would possibly be also among players, the nation saying that we have great export. But unfortunately, due to our small population and the opportunities also available to players, the best, and also maybe the players also maybe aren't too ambitious. But I think PSL is where most of our great players have played, from Namibia, from even previous generations, and I think the kind of competitiveness in the PSL, and I also love the fact that Botswana now is also taking their football very seriously, and they're very professional. They sort of set that tone of what they should come and replicate at the national team. So a lot of them are very professional. They're coming from great settings. I mean, you're playing in the FNB stadium, is a 80,000 capacity stadium. So when you come back home, you sort of know, okay, I play in front of an 80,000 capacity stadium, so it's nothing playing against in a crowd of 10,000. It sort of prepares them for playing, for to play at the national level. as much as it's not, one would say maybe not the best exposure, like we're possibly going to be going up against players who play in the French leagues, who play in the, in the PSL, and a lot of great players. I mean, their development has gone beyond us, but I still believe that them being in these settings, and also just playing in Namibia, football is actually really interesting to watch here. We have so many great players. If the facilities can be on par, I promise you, we'll be seeing a lot of more exports from Namibia into the PSL, into the Botswana League. We also have a few players who played in Zambia. So there's been sort of a rotation in SADC, because that's where most of the opportunities lie, for our players. But with also the exposure of playing in the CAF Champions League, they are able to travel across Africa, play against the Wydad Casablancas, play against big clubs in Africa. So that also gives them an exposure of what to face when they play for the national team. Because playing in Africa, I don't think anybody says this enough. It's probably one of the toughest things there is in the world. Playing in Africa is not easy, and I think this is what maybe toughens them up, and it also keeps the unity amongst the players, because they sort of get to see each other. I mean, a Dion Horta will see a Peter Shalulile possibly twice a season, because they will have to face each other. And then if they're in the same cities, they probably also get to connect and link up. So they are not away from each other too much. And the local ones, they are quite grounded. They are very competitive. So and everybody wants to be selected in the national team. So the more senior players are always kept on their toes.
It's interesting you're saying about the need for that experience of playing, CAF football. And even we were speaking to Radi Jaidi earlier today, who obviously won the AFCON in 2004 with Tunisia as Tunisia's most capped player and kind of a true African football legend. And that's, one of the things he was saying about a lot of the kind of new, younger, modern players coming from Europe. He's saying, look, they're brilliant, they're talented, we want them as a part of this Tunisia team, but they have to have experience of playing on the continent. And someone like him, spent a decade at Esperance, one of the best, club sides, can show that experience. And I think you're spot on where that experience is so necessary. But Joviita, obviously one of your famous, exports who made it beyond kind of the shores of Namibia and South Africa is your current coach, Colin Benjamin, who obviously enjoyed, well over a decade in Germany. I believe he's still Namibia's only player to have ever played in the UEFA Champions League. And he's kind of a true legend of Namibian football. Tell me about him. Tell me about his story.
Well, I mean, I was talking to him a bit earlier on, and let me tell you one thing about Colin Benjamin. It's his heart. He's so humble, gracious, kind. He's not really the one he shies away even from his allocates. Like, he's very, obviously he knows what he has done, but sometimes I think he's just too humble for his own good and just too gracious. But his story is such a beautiful story. I mean, it's one of hope and one of dream. And I always say that in order for you to go down the history books, you should have done something that is extraordinary. What Colin did was extraordinary. So there was a player, Radundara Shikudu. He played also in the Bundesliga, but he went when he was quite young. And so Colin saw Shikudu coming back home to play for the Brave Warriors. And he thought, wow, if this guy can play in Germany and make it, surely I can. And I mean, he super passed him. He really, had such a great time. And there was, I think, a couple of months back, he was back in Germany, and he was doing a game for his former club. And the fans absolutely cheered him on, and that's how much of a legacy he has left at Hamburg, because he still celebrated in 2023 for somebody who retired in the early 2010s. There, he's still very much celebrated, and he is the play. And this is one of the reasons why even at the national team, players can respect him, and they listen to him. Because what are you going to tell a person who has played in the UEFA Champions League? What are you going to tell a coach who has played at AFCON, who has played at the biggest level, had played at the biggest stages? The only thing he has not done is played at the World Cup. But if we're looking at it, AFCON is the pinnacle of playing, at the big stage and representing your country. So he has really done it all. He's now preparing his team. He's quite excited. I mean, there's a lot going on, but he's very much excited. He's going to be, a player coach who's going to the World Cup and has played at the not at the World Cup, I mean AFCON, and has played at AFCON, part of AFCON 2008 squad, and now he was part of AFCON 2019 with Ricardo Manetti, who was also another player coach. He played at 98 AFCON, was at 2019 AFCON. So it's sort of a trend now. We see getting all the former players are getting into coaching, are getting into those good roles where they can plow back and give back their expertise. And Colin is absolutely, a great player, a great coach, or was a great player, now a great coach. His insights are superb. He goes back and wants to get it correct. He's sort of a perfectionist, and he doesn't settle for defeat without valid reason as to why they are losing. So he's an amazing coach, and I think he's gonna do great with this Brave Warriors side. And you see how you've qualified amidst the circumstances, and how he's just been able to pull something out of the boys when they could not have given anything. And I think he's what the Brave Warriors need at this point. And I love the fact that it's not only in Namibia, but we're seeing it all across Africa. It's becoming a trend. And you're speaking about the coach of Tunisia. It's becoming a trend where former players, born Africans, are coaching their national teams. Because even when you stand on the sidelines and the players look at you, they know they have to play because you played and you did something, so they have to do something because history sort of needs to get better than it was.
Yeah, I think that's a great kind of set. We talked a lot about that on this podcast about how important it is that African coaches are taking charge of their own nations in a way that we've never really seen before to the same scale. And it's great to see that kind of Colin Benjamin is kind of pushing that forward. And also, I love that you're talking about his humility coming through as well. We can't wait to see him kind of see what he can do at the AFCON. Obviously, he did a terrific job in getting you guys there, but you've been rewarded with a really, really tough group. Obviously, we mentioned Tunisia earlier. You're in the same group as Tunisia. And if we mention Tunisia, they're always in the same group as Mali. So Tunisia, Mali, and then surprise, surprise, the one team you've been with twice out of your last three times at the AFCON, your neighbor, South Africa. What is the sense? Or is there excitement to play South Africa, or is there more kind of frustration? We're sick of playing South Africa. We don't want to play these guys. We live next to them.
When we qualified, it was all happy and we were all excited. And then the day of the draw arrived, and I think we were all so tense. We all eagerly watched the draw and were like, "Oh, please, God, not South Africa." We all said, "Not South Africa." We have such a history with them. Apart from being our neighbors, we faced them so much. 2019, we faced them in Egypt. And 2023, we go back, we are facing them again. Just like us, they also, missed Cameroon 2021, and now they're back and they're putting a group with us. And we also have Mali and we have Tunisia. We are thinking, what miracles do we need these boys to do to get past the group stage? And if you're looking at the statistics of Namibia, is we are yet to win a game at the Africa Cup of Nations. We are yet to get out of the group stage, and Colin was very realistic. Colin made all of us buy into his dream and to his plan. A win for the Brave Warriors in the group stage. There's a place for the third best. We're hoping that our stats can be that so that we can get out of the group. But realistically speaking, anything is possible. We've seen how African football has become unpredictable. Namibia just beat Cameroon. Who says we can't beat Tunisia? Who says we can't beat Mali if we can beat Cameroon? So anything can happen on the day. I think it's just, the mindset, the preparation. And I think our boys, mentally, they are ready. They just need to put in those touches. But it's definitely going to be a tough one if we're seeing the group that we are in. It's not a walk in the park, and having to face our neighbors again. I think that is just another another like why we're always seeing them. And we had the President's Cup a month ago, and we had the South African legends facing the Namibian legends,
Mm-hmm.
and it was all good, reminiscing about the past, good stories about the rivalry. And we're like, we're gonna see this again in January. We're going to be seeing this again. But it's all good. We love our neighbors, they love us, we have a great relationship. But on the day, everybody would want to win, and I'm certainly rooting for the Brave Warriors to get the result because we really want to get out of the group stage on our fourth attempt, and if not the get out of the group stage, a win. And we are hoping that we can get that win against our neighbors, South Africa. Realistically, that's our good chance. But I mean, Mali strong, but we can also take them on. And Tunisia, the Eagles, I just have to wait for the Warriors.
Even look at the last AFCON, who was in Mali and Tunisia's group is Gambia, making their first appearance at AFCON, the lowest ranked team in AFCON history. And lo and behold, they go top, joint top that group, 7 points, I think. So I think there's precedent, but obviously the big one is always going to be South Africa. And I'll be honest, Joviita, I know my fellow podcasters won't appreciate me saying this, but I would love for the Brave Warriors to beat Bafana Bafana. I would love it. It would make me so happy.
Thank you so much for rooting for us because I mean the rivalry is there, and it's just been it will never stop. And I know even the players, they know it's a Southern African derby. It's a South Africa versus Namibia derby. It's a big derby. Everybody's gonna be glued to that one. And if you're looking at our stats, they are not too bad off. We have wins. We have all won against each other. We've all drawn against each other. We also received defeat, but it's been a bit steady over the past few years, where the margins aren't too big, so it becomes a realistic chance to win. So I'm excited for that game more than anything, and I wish it was our first game.
I know that. I think that's the only thing that would make it sweet.
I really wish we didn't have to face Tunisia first, but I mean that's our first matchup, and yeah, that's what we have to go through first. So I'm just excited to see the boys go to AFCON and hopefully a victory against Bafana Bafana.
Joviita, thank you so much. We always end the podcast by asking our experts a quick round of quick-fire questions. So I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm looking for kind of quick rapid-fire answers. So, and some of them may be easy, some of them may be hard. The first question up is, coming into the tournament, who is Namibia's best player?
Peter Shalulile.
Easy. And Shalulile is the best player, but who is the youngster to watch at this tournament?
Oh my gosh, Prince Shiweda, an absolute star to watch. I mean, the team has not been selected finally yet, but I promise you he will be in that lineup, or he will be in that final 23-man squad. And Prince Shiweda is an absolute gem to watch.
Excellent. Looking forward to it. And I need a prediction from you. How far are the Brave Warriors going to make it at this AFCON?
Round of 16.
Round of 16. I love the confidence. Okay. And if Namibia are getting to the round of 16, who is going to win the tournament?
Wow, that's a very difficult one. Do you know what? I actually think Senegal can retain their title.
Senegal.
I really believe they can.
Absolutely. Heavy favorites, one of the big ones. And who is going to be the top scorer at this tournament?
It's definitely not going to be one of the top stars. I'm trying to think who, but the big players always sort of shy away from big stage. But I think, I'm trying to think of a. Since I'm going with Senegal, let me say Sadio Mane.
Makes sense. And if Senegal is going to be the winner, Sadio Mane is going to be the top goal scorer. Who is going to be the best player at the tournament?
Best player. Probably. Best player of the tournament. I'm not thinking of who's gonna face Senegal in the. I would go with. I feel like Morocco has a good chance. I'm trying to think of. What's the player's name? I feel like they have a good chance of going far. I'm trying to remember his name. He was in the final. He was part of the top three finalists
Hakimi.
at the CAF Awards. Yes, Hakimi. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay,
yes,
Hakimi. Yes. All right, Joviita, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you. It's been wonderful having you on the podcast, and we cannot wait to. I especially cannot wait to be cheering on the Brave Warriors particularly as they take on Bafana Bafana. Thanks so much for joining us, Joviita.